The Indiana Attorney General's Parental Bill of Rights is a 53-page document focusing on student and family rights in schools. It answers legal questions about school curriculums, student medical rights, whether or not kids can opt out of certain lessons, you name it. And it goes into pretty big detail on social emotional learning. According to the AG's office, state law gives our education department the authority to develop a plan for children's social, emotional, and behavioral health, but it doesn't require schools to use it. In a statement, Todd Rokita says these SEL programs represent a fundamental shift in the role of teachers from educators to therapists and expands the government's reach into family matters. So tonight, our 13 Investigates reporter Sierra Putman digs into the history of SEL in our state.
SEL is a complicated issue, but supporters say it's basically a science-based framework that's supposed to help students become emotionally balanced, productive citizens. Back in 2019, the state published goals for what students should learn with social-emotional learning. Dr. Lori Dusatel helped develop those competencies, like critical thinking and collaboration.
It's really a collection of the most recent social and affective neurosciences.
The idea is to help kids deal with a variety of issues, like the more than 36% of students that reported being cyberbullied, or the 26% who said they don't feel safe in school, according to this year's Kids Count survey. Advocates say SEL helps kids identify what's causing them to feel emotions like anger.
Thoughts are just that.
And it teaches them how to manage those feelings, like taking deep breaths.
One of the most fascinating things that I've had fun teaching in schools with students is talking about their brain, how their brain responds to a breath, and what the science behind a belly breath.
Ike Curry is with Social Emotional Learning Alliance for Indiana. He says he notices a difference in his Indianapolis public schools classrooms.
SEL is nothing new.
But the framework and the way it's discussed now is different.
We now are seeing that kids feel relieved and they feel empowered to know that there's nothing wrong with them.
The Indiana Department of Education says studies show SEL can help improve grades and reduce stress for teachers. Curry and Dusatel say SEL is not about indoctrinating children.
You know, it has nothing to do, and I mean nothing to do, with critical race theory.
But now she says it's needed more than ever due to the pandemic.
We are seeing a social loss in our children. I'm not talking about an academic loss. We are seeing a social loss that's really indescribable.
Supporters of SEL says it also helps kids for the real world, saying employers want workers that can manage their own emotions and also work well with others. Scott?
Sierra, we're already starting to see parents who are at odds with local school districts about social emotional learning. Just take a look at Carmel Clay schools. Back in May, parents protested SEL programs before a school board meeting. Some even targeted the district's mental health coordinator, to the point that school leaders addressed threats in a letter. The district has school-based therapists accessible to students with parental permission. More than 400 students have taken part over the last 14 months. The district's also completed more than 100 suicide screenings since the start of the school year. Carmel Clay school leaders say they stand by social emotional learning programs after noticing an increase in students battling anxiety, depression, or behavioral issues. The district says it's pretty straightforward, like having the kids draw self-portraits, highlighting their strengths, or having them put together some group projects so they can learn how to communicate. And we have more details on what SEL actually looks like in the classroom posted for you on WTHR.com. And that wraps up tonight's big story.